What is up, y'all, and welcome to Theist Helpline, but the topics have yet to come because this is the show where we ask theists what they believe in and why. Let's get to the fun. Boop, shoopa, whoopa da boopa doopa woo. Speaking of which, next Theist Helpline, I expect to have a song. I expect to have some sort of logo created. I am putting my producer hat back on. It has been so exciting to have the summer. I do want to wish everyone a very happy summer. Oh, it has been so great. I've been able to clean. I've been able to get things done, and that means more podcasting. We might even podcast twice today. I do believe we're going to be podcasting later tonight with James. I do want to send love out there. Let's remind ourselves to like, follow, and subscribe, because then we unlock the secrets of the universe. What? No, we don't? We just get to... Oh, okay. Well, then you just get reminders to see our updates to the channel. Anyway, you also get to see our premieres and our live updates and all of that fun stuff, because we get to say hello to you. Like, what is up, Moon Shoes? What is up, Jessica? What is up, Fenton? What is up, everybody? Sending so much love. Keep on sending love. I'll keep on sending it back. If we're in the middle of the conversation, I might just start showing things on screen while we talk. I'll give some quick shout outs. I think Taco is still waking up and a few of the others, but I will try and get this in within 9 minutes. And if he's on the sleepy side of things, then maybe I'll just jump into a theist channel. I do know that the Politics and Religion and Politics server both have Discord fun. But I hope you are all doing well. I am sending love again, not only to James W., but all of you out there in the skeptic and ranting community. I really do feel this need, this desire to reunite this flame, because I feel like having a community, an alternative community to religion, is extremely important. You know, it might not always be. Maybe, you know, it's more important when you're just coming out of religion, or maybe out of maybe you're the opposite and you've been away for so long and miss community. Whatever the case may be, I want us to be there, because I think that if there isn't an alternative, that really just leaves people with one option, and they end up becoming, the cultural versions or whatever, which is what I see a lot of atheists in a lot of these media circles have been doing. So, like, my biggest example is not just, I would say, AP Prophet, which James could tell that bothers me, but also people like Russell Brand. There's been a few others that, I would say are a reaction to, I hate to say new atheists, because they weren't really new atheists. It was just atheists in the modern generation. Eventually there'll be old atheists, and the new atheists will most likely have very similar beliefs. Politically, they might think a little bit differently, but ultimately, not believing in God is the only thing that one needs to be an atheist. Send in so much. Do I have any content on any podcast apps? I think that I really need to start churning out. I know that there are other ways to get your podcast out there, different formats. We are on YouTube, we're on Twitch, we're on X. I always love on news websites, they're always like X, formerly Twitter, because Twitter is just so much better branding. sending love to the people that are watching on X. It's just, tweet was almost a part of our lexicon. Probably got into the dictionary. But you see, X.com existed before Twitter. It was just a banking website. What's up, Deacon? What's up, Robin? What's up, Gerudo Legends? And everyone out there sending so much love. We have like 5 minutes. I'm going to try and speed through this. Yes, many ways to support the show. You can send in super chats and dance around, interact. Might be hard to see me dancing, but I'll be doing it. We'll send lots of love, as well as all of our channel members with our evolving badge system. I want to do more episodes on evolution. I know it's like a third of the content that we do anyway. However, the more I learn about evolution, about biology, the more it just makes sense. And I just continually get stumbled. Like, I have recently been looking into how sponges were quite possibly, maybe not the first animal, but one of the first animals, where especially one of the living organisms. They're the oldest going back, that type of model. And so when the creationists are always like, oh, you think you're related to a sponge? Yes. Not only do I think we're related to a sponge, I think it's fascinating how we actually, you can see how they have plant-like, at least from our eyes, but if you were to actually look in close on a microscopic level, they have different ways of actually hunting down food. It's fascinating. Sending so much love, however, to all of our creationist brothers, sisters, and of course our atheist, agnostic, our skeptic friends. You could still be a skeptic and a theist, but I think skeptic should be top level. I am an atheist because of my skepticism. However, I still think skepticism is the top level thing we're talking about. It annoys me. And again, annoyed is a feeling, but it annoys me when theists tell me they are 110% certain. Like, I'm 99% certain this is, the actual real dimension. And I'm fairly certain it is. I would bet everything. Just like I would bet that the world is round. Saw a very interesting video on 4D topology, and I would honestly be doing this educated woman a disservice by trying to explain it, but it helped me understand why flat earthers are so confused. Just because when you're so close to something, especially like our sphere, it looks 2D all around us. You can only move in 4 directions. You don't have the ability really to go up unless you jump or, you're digging through the earth. But it's there, 3D topology, 4D. Go check it out. Colorful haired lady, but it was a great video. All right, I got 2 minutes trying to move on Amy time. Yes, as well as all of our Patrons at patreon.com/ABNewman, including all of our fantastic supporters like Azo. Thank you so much for reminding us we have a skeptic and ranting community. Chris Disciple reminding us, yes, theists could be in the skeptic and ranting community. Dale Pastel reminding us that we're looking for empirical evidence. Rachel reminding us that you don't have to take slaves from the nations around you. Have you tried a club? Dancing? Reid Jost reminding you the skeptic Bible study is coming back. Oh my goodness. I have enjoyed going through. I know it's a weird word to say, but going through all of the weirdness that is the Bible. Right now we're going through the Old Testament, the portions of the Torah and Tanka. Because when you see these stories, like page for page, there's some horror in there that I don't think makes the Sunday school edition or the Friday or Saturday school edition, depending on what your religion is. But there is one key correlation within the Abrahamic religions, and that is God does need a day off on the weekend. At least one. Can't even give him a 3-day, 2-day. Creates the whole universe, but sure. I think God as a Jewish mother would be pretty funny. Oh, sure. I create the whole universe. You don't even give me more than a day. I gotta pick a Friday, a Saturday, a Sunday. God forbid. I'm sorry. Me forbid that I get the whole weekend. Anyway, sending so much love to Ian Davenport, reminding us the apologetic arguments tend to, they always ask us, what would you like? What's your best evidence? And we go empirical. And they go, well, clearly you're not going to get that. So what do you want after that? And we're like, well, I don't know. What do you got? Arguments, I guess. Mostly theology. Actually, it's mostly checking out our belief systems until we get bored and them never defending them. And I'm talking mostly about my precept brothers, sisters, sending so much love. There's a lot on the internet, but they don't seem to exist in real life. Haven't met many. All right. We're about to head over. I see Ix saying hello. I'm waiting for Taco. And then we will head over. But how are you all doing? What is up, Larry? Is there anything gayer than an atheist? I guess, well, there's a lot. But, like, you should check my browser history. I'm just teasing. Not really. But, a pride flag. Oh, my goodness. I have like gone this weird back and forth with identity politics because I've spent the past, I feel like decade, if not almost 2 decades, like trying to avoid identity politics because that's all I've gotten is like, that's all you insert liberal LGBTQ care about, all you atheists, all you care about is identity politics. That's all you talk about. And so for like 2 decades, all I talked about was like, your God doesn't exist. Not real. None of them. Thousands of them. None of them. And I always get the same thing back. Yeah, that's cool and that's interesting, but let's look between your legs. Whew. And it hasn't lessened. If anything, it's increased. That's like the twilight zone that I'm in that in not trying to lean into identity politics, it has only, that's why I've given James at Modern Day Debate, I'm just like, you know what, I'll just debate them now, because why not? There was a point where I was like, I'm transgender, and you know what, I'm interested in all these other things, and I want to debate all these other things, and yet I'm sending so much love. All right, back on religion. Because I do believe religion is actually the main cause. Like, I could sit here and talk about any million of political issues. But honestly, it's religion. It always goes back to this type of culture war that ultimately stems from my book, Said a Thing. I mean, honestly, the book says to do very bad things to us. It says to get us stoned, and I don't mean like 420. So we've actually potty trained them. Hi, Ironbeard. I'm not drunk. This is just the way I talk as a neurodivergent person. That was the #1 comment in my debate. And it annoys me because this is what Kamala Harris had to deal with. This is what Hillary Clinton, they didn't drink either. Not only did they not drink, I just don't get it. Like, there's a lot of things to criticize them for. There's a lot of things to probably criticize me for. I got people who are like, "Are you on fentanyl?" And doesn't that drug kill? Like, no, I don't know enough about fentanyl, but like I know from all the PSAs that they're like, only a fingernail and it'll kill you. I do like 420. That's pretty fantastic. It's legal around here and slowly around the country. Thank you, Robin. And caffeine. I will admit, I kind of am a caffeine junkie. Yeah, 420 is the way. I hope it'll get federally legalized. That is my hope. Especially compared to all the other drugs that go on. Listen, I would never want to put prohibition. But I just think that if we would, admit that we lost the war on drugs kind of won. And we should probably just treat addicts and really help people instead of trying to funnel them into jails. Also, I'm talking just because I'm still waiting. I think that Taco might be napping. I can't blame him, though, because I'll be honest, I do the same thing. I was enjoying this past week. It went by so fast. But, oh, my God, the first week of summer. Whew. What's up, Iron? What's up, davegar? Woohoo! It sounds, yeah. See, I mumble sometimes. I get that from my dad. I sometimes joke that I'm like a hybrid. I sometimes tactically mumble when I'm embarrassed. But then I can feel almost like a dyslexia. The beginning and the end of my sentences will switch sometimes. But I'm sending so much love, davegar. And I have ADHD as well, Jessica. That is my neurodivergence. Like, and I get two groups of people. I get people who go, well, that doesn't exist, which is always interesting. But then I get people that will be like, oh no, you definitely, I think weird. I'm very sympathetic to people on the spectrum. I'm very sympathetic to dyslexics. And it's not that I am them, because to say that I'm on the spectrum would be doing people who are on the spectrum a disjustice. But it's like I'm just sympathetic. It's hard to explain. Greetings, fellow heathens. What's up? Rembrandt, if I can speak. And Zach, Adam's apple check. I'm trans. I always find that's the most boring thing about me. Again, this is going to be the dichotomy of my life, is that, like, I want to sit here and just talk about consciousness, how it is this, I wouldn't even say fundamental. I actually push back on the people who say it's this fundamental mechanism. It's fundamental to us, the most fascinating, interesting mechanism, the thing that separates us as animals. But, being transgender, it's hot. LGBTQ. Is being gay boring, at least? Slight name change? No, I've had my name change. I had a name change over a decade ago. That's what I mean. Like, it's just, I'm in a weird situation where I know for a fact that it's being boosted and kept in the public's eyes, not by the LGBTQ. Like, it's not in our control anymore. It's the opposition side. And so all I can do is play tennis. People saying that gay and trans is pretty boring. Is that your entire personality? No, I would say it's one of the right's biggest identity politics right now. They cannot get enough of it. And again, and this is not the first time I think I've said this. I do feel like I'm in Groundhog's Day, but no, I hit my microphone. Apologies to everyone's ears. I think it's religion. I think religion is why, I am very sympathetic again to my libertarian brothers and sisters. I think they're the liberals of the right. But these libertarian techno people have made deals with the right, like the far right, these religious people. And the religious people, they care very deeply about who you marry. Thank you, I've been sending so much love. I know. I've seen videos, GOP Jesus. He's got an AK-47. And he's ready to take away healthcare. I am half gay. I love being bi. I will just put, I'll send love to all of my straight and gay brothers and sisters out there because I would not trade it for the world. Then you don't have to worry. You see a hot person and you go, they're pretty cute. My partner's bi. Sometimes go, hey, you think that person's cute? And you go, uh-huh. It's a good time. Bi equal greedy. I know. I feel the exact opposite. You will never find someone who wants to share more. Oh. But I get you. I'm just stuck in this weird place where it's like identity politics now follows me. I'm honored to go on Modern Day Debate and to defend the LGBTQ. Politically, as blue hair as I get, I always feel this weird need to compromise and moderate. And, I want people to get along. And yet, I could tell you, at least from personal experience, I don't want to be arguing about the bathroom. I don't want to be arguing about the locker room. I don't want to be arguing about sports. Those weren't topics we picked. Like, those bubbled up from accepting transgender people in society. Thank you, April. In political debates, I'm learning to get my teeth. It'll probably take me a few more. I think in religious debates, I get much more cut and dry. I'm very much, I don't want to hurt your feelings, but your God does not exist. Please give me good evidence. Politics is hard because it feels like it's opinion versus opinion. I think people can have more educated opinions. I like to think that I have educated opinions, but it's more complicated, where I just don't believe a God exists. I think that actually falls on scientific grounds. I mean, we mostly view it from theology, philosophy, but to me, they're making scientific claims. Either the dude came back from the dead or he didn't. Still no taco, y'all. I feel bad. I'll keep on ranting for a little while, and if not, maybe I'll even find some opposition. Maybe we'll go somewhere. Yeah, type to him. Still. All right, well, I tagged him and asked him. I could also send the link into chat. Any theists out there that want to join and maybe tell me what they believe and why? I do try to win people over with honey. I want to also support my team members. I think sometimes, I try to to make sure that, when I was listening to First Amender, when he was making good points, I wanted to make sure that I was agreeing with him and stuff. But my first inclination isn't to be combative in politics, which is hard because when I'm in just by myself, I'm probably more, again, my hair gets more blue, I get more piercings and become more liberal. Because I very much am against this administration. You're not going to find someone probably against this administration more than me. But that doesn't mean I'm anti-conservative or anti-republic. I don't think that the person, leading this country is either of those things. The irony, I actually think, is this president is the first atheist president. I think Obama was an agnostic. I think his father was an agnostic. If you actually look, I do all these friggin' back and forth with people. Tell me Obama, he wasn't born in America. He's a Muslim. There's nothing wrong with, first of all, I'm not a big fan of fundamentalist anything, but Obama's father was the exact opposite. He was an agnostic who came to this country and made love with another agnostic. His mom was agnostic. They were both academics. And so if we were to actually judge and say he was the same beliefs as his parents, that means Obama was probably most likely an agnostic. And I have to now admit to myself on some level, because he won't admit it, but I think that Trump was our first atheist president. Now, I do believe, unfortunately, you have to be either an atheist or a con artist. I don't know what it has to be to sell Bibles. To sell Bibles, that Glenn Greenwald Bible is such an irony. Like, Christians, aren't you embarrassed of that? Like, the irony of selling for $60 a book that he most likely has never read. They asked him what his favorite passage was, the orange one. And he said, "Oh, that's too personal." I like it when Jesus gets angry at the fig tree. I'll tell you why I like it when Jesus gets angry at the fig tree, because it shows he's not perfect. And I'll give, the Christians, he says some okay things on the Sermon on the Mount. I think they're things we could find in other texts and comparable. Not saying he was a dick, but I am very skeptical of the claim that anyone is perfect. I get very hesitant and skeptical. I don't think that a virgin birth can happen unless there was science. Sending love. Another minute or two. I'm going to send the link in StreamYard. Maybe bait a theist into coming. Kinky. But I do think that all of our cultural issues come from these long remnants of religion. We wouldn't be arguing about gay and trans if it wasn't for religion. I know, unfortunately, that this quote-unquote manosphere online has promoted this, incel nationalist. I agree. The people in control right now are not conservatives. They are nationalists. They are what I call the incel techno-nationalists. It's this weird rebranded manosphere, because the manosphere used to be a lot more atheist-driven. The Joe Rogan and others of the world. I'm trying to remember that other comedian. All right, I'm going to send in... Are you a theist? Call that boop. first attempt out. If Taco comes online, then I'll just kindly ask our friend to stop and we'll switch over. But affecting site. Yes, exactly. I unfortunately, can I tell you, I was getting to a weird place in life, Gerudo and everyone. I was getting to a weird place where I was almost jokingly calling myself a bootlicker for the West. And I'll tell you why. Because if you were to take a look about a decade ago, the trend was we were getting rights in every positive direction. Women were getting more rights, minorities were getting more rights, and the LGBTQ were getting more rights. And it was hard for me to criticize the West. Like, yes, we've done, I'm not saying we haven't done horrible things. We can't erase our history. But what I'm saying was the trend was actually going in the right direction. And I found myself defending the West more than I was attacking it. I find that, like a roller coaster, it feels like it's going in the opposite direction. And I get a lot of flack because, I think abortion is a more hot topic. I feel like I should be pushing for that more than us talking about LGBTQ issues. Because not that they're not equally as important, but we had gay marriage. And the only thing that transgenders actually fought for was to be in the military. So from my perspective, we had everything the LGBTQ had ever fought for. We won every culture battle. Now it's become a political football. This military thing will go back and forth. But I care about my biological sisters who had federal abortion in Roe v. Wade. And this is my new thing. Not new. I've said it before. But when I hear the phrase states' rights, I get a little bit afraid. To me, we should hand it over to the states' rights has always been a way to take away rights. And whenever I bring up something that they like, well, that no longer needs states' rights. Jedis are not gay. But can they be? We find homosexuality in thousands of animals. Religion one. Oh, I know. No, religion is the weird thing out. Excuse me. Religion is this odd thing to me, subjectively, where we take minds outside of the body and we kind of either worship them, communicate with them. The joke is, if you talk with God, that's normal. If God talks with you, might need to get some help. The funny thing, I'm just randomly watching chat, but Mark Hamill was not happy about how his character went down. He jokes all the time, kind of offhand about it. Says he overdosed on the Force. Hi, Kilo Whiskey. What's up? What's up, everybody? I think Taco might have fallen asleep. So we're just sitting here basically ranting. It feels so good to be live. It feels like I'm stretching, to be honest. I am going to really spend time this summer creating a pipeline, infrastructure on this channel. I really want ways in which when I go back to work in the fall, that we continue to make content. I really do think this community is important. What is up, your Victoria? Sending so much love to everyone out there. We may just end up ranting about religion today, though I'm going to keep the lines open. So if you are a theist, please feel free to come on and talk to me about why. I'll even say if you want to talk about gender or anything else, I'll tell you why. Because all that stuff, to me, I do, at the end of the day, comes back to religion. I know that TERFs exist, the trans, exclusive, radical feminists and all this stuff. But, they really are at odds with the religious people who want quote-unquote traditional gender norms. And I pushed that a little bit in the debate. I didn't want to, I could have kept on going down that road, but it was clear that the nice young lady who I was talking to said she had a psychology background. I think she had a bachelor's in psychology, and she talked about how, it'd be nice, because I tried to question her on, would you be okay with having your son come home and just saying, I'm not trans, but I just want to dress this way and wear lipstick and makeup and all this. And I think that, she would be okay with that. I don't know how open that Jake would have been. I think that Jake really does support. Maybe in that moment he would. I do think that he wants a guy to act like a guy and a girl to act like a girl. That type of thing. Sending love to X out there. I do see he's up. I don't know. I don't know if he's watching the stream, but I am sending love to everybody out there. If we don't talk about theology tonight, well, we are going to talk about it because I just want to rant about it. But later on tonight, I think I'm going to stream with James and do a video. But, excuse me. I do want to make peace with, the conservatives. I just think that I'm not a big fan of I support your family or my family, but not other people's families. So I like it when we talk about being pro-family. I think family is one of the most important things that we can have as a species, as a living organism. I just don't want to axe out other families. Found family is as important as blood, is as important as marriage. These are all different ways that we connect as humans. We can have, male and female. But nature, I think, just does, who we're attracted to tends to be like a taste in food. It happens just so fast. I don't know if it's environmental or genetic, but I don't know. I know that I can't choose who I'm attracted to. It does happen as fast as, it's not even short-term memory. It's iconic memory. You just look at a person and you go, yep, they're cute. I think the same way with food. Just like how I think both of those things are interpersonal and subjective. Please don't eat your partner. Though you can eat out your partner, possibly. What's up? Look at the trees. What's up, everybody? We are just, I think, going to have a Theist Helpline where we're ranting, but I'll continue saying out there, if you're a theist, now's the time to have a one-on-one, baby. Come join the StreamYard. Next Theist Helpline, I want a sound. I want a logo. I am getting my producer chops back up. I have to update the Patreon and the channel members and everything. I want to get staff. I want to get more people. I want to get James and I an assistant. I want to get us graphics and film people, all sorts of different people. What is up? No, I'm not sexually attracted to food. No, I'm not attracted to food either. Though, oh my gosh, a juicy steak, let me tell you. Though it's funny, morally, I actually support vegans and vegetarians. I'm just weak on that issue. I think that's what's going to naturally happen in 1,000 years. Yep, can't BS a god into existence. I will continue to say a god does not exist. I'm not a hard atheist, I'm a medium atheist. Certain gods do not exist. They just have the trappings of us making them. And so, sure, it could be true that, the God of the Bible is real, but we know how the Bible was formed. We know how the Torah came to be. We know how the Quran was written. It's another big one. They make the claim we do not know. It was Abu Bakr. We also get claims that we don't take on Islam. Take on any religion. I don't like going after minorities for the sake of them being minorities, which I think some on the far right do. But I'm not a fan of any fundamentalist anything. Fundamentalist Judaism and fundamentalist Islam, they act very similar. And yet the liberals seem to get along just fine. That's the problem, I would actually say. You want to solve the Middle East crisis, put liberals in charge of both sides. It can't just be one. Oh, you're not. I should be in the Skeptics and Ranting Discord chat. Tell me if I'm not. I want to hire someone, speaking of hiring, I'll get someone in there to really handle the Discord server. I want people to be able to just select their roles and things like that, just like the politics and religion or politics server. So I'm trying to join the call. Oh, I'm not in a Discord thing right now. Our host is not on right now. You would have to join StreamYard. Homosexuality is environmental and not genetic. No such thing as a gay baby. I didn't say there's no such thing as a straight baby because they don't have sexuality. But sure, we could talk identity politics. The bane of my existence. No. See, here's the thing. I'm getting to this point where I have tried not to talk about identity politics so much that it's like, you know what? Fine. If that's all of you religious people, yeah, he's not live on YouTube. I'll be honest with you. I think he's sleeping. I don't blame him. I almost was like out of it last week. It's a human condition. I could tease him about it, though. So I'm still sending love to breakfast tacos, though. And I'm probably going to stream twice today. So this, honestly, I like what we do, though. We have a fun stream. I like Theist Helpline. I'm going to create us a logo, like I said, this month. And maybe I'll pass it on to Taco if he wants to use it. But I finally have time. I'm caught up on almost everything. And I just don't get, I don't have StreamYard. Am I able to call on Discord? All right. Call me on Discord and I'll share your Discord thing. My goodness. It's going to make things hard because I don't have a stream. Oh, you don't have to have a StreamYard. StreamYard is just a website. You just go on here and click. I don't think you have to sign up for an account. I don't think. And my friend, and I'm sending love, and I know this may anger you, it may not, but I have good data showing anti-gays are gay. Why not just be gay? Like, in fact, I have a running bet, which is you're either religious, gay, or both. Because it could be you're just religious. The religious are like, oh, we got a two-step plan for gays. The first step, well, it's a surprise, but the second step is a funeral. That's how the fundamentalists kind of like handle us. Like they're nice to us because we've potty trained them, but like their book actually says murder us. I'm sorry, YouTube. I'm sending so much love. Unlive us. And so we've kind of potty trained them in the West, and now they just get frumpy about making wedding cakes. Oh, here we go. All right, well, let's get someone on here. We got Jib backstage. We are Theist helplining. Let's have some fun.
Hello, can you hear me?
I can. How are you?
Well, I'm trying to figure out how this works. I can turn it on to speaker because I can barely hear, actually. I'm using it through my phone. Let's see, how do I do this? Is there like a speaker option on here? More options. Oh, audio.
Oh. Pressed audio, and that kicked him somehow. That was not me. And thus, I assume he'll be back. I really, again, this is also, and again, he's fine, and I'll have the debate when he comes back and stuff. But this is the continuation of when we talk about religion, they want to talk about your junk. All right, Cameron Markwell. Let's see, is that him? Hello?
Hi, can you hear me?
I can.
All right, perfect. I have YouTube open at the same time, and I think there's a lag, but I muted the YouTube and I'm listening to you on StreamYard, so I hope that works.
Mm-hmm. And just so you know, at any time, not saying it will, but if my host actually does come, then we would have to end the conversation. But it would.
No problem.
Yep.
So,
how are you?
I'm good. So I've never heard of you before. You're an atheist,
Okay.
and this is like an opportunity for discussion about whether or not God exists, right?
Yep.
Sweet. So do you believe that there's like an uncaused cause?
I don't know. There could be, but as far as we can tell, all we can do is go back to the Big Bang.
Well, I don't even need like a specific changes or specific causes and effects. We can just like say there's a cause, and there was a cause that caused that, and there was a cause that caused that, and just go back in a arbitrary chain. And then like either it has to go on forever, or it has to be circular, or there has to be an uncaused cause. Right?
Or there could be other
apply
things.
to like anything.
Sure, we don't know.
Yeah, kind of, except two of those options are not really plausible or are contradictory. Like if it's circular, then things are causing themselves and there's just like no explanation for why the thing exists. Like if that were the case, we'd have to deal with.
You're saying uncaused causes are okay.
I'm saying that, yeah, there could be something that exists in and of itself, of its like own being.
So why can't
being
that
itself.
be the universe?
The what?
Why can't that be the universe?
I'm not going to say what that is or is not. Where I'd like to go with is if there's an uncaused cause, can we start describing it and sort of discovering or reasoning out traits of it?
So I would say we can't, and I think it would be a mistake to apply any traits to anything like that.
Why? Well, we can apply some attributes to it, right?
I don't know that we can.
Well, we could say that, like, it exists, right?
Well, that is the claim, yes.
And let me see. We could say that pretty much everything else depends on its existence, because, like, unless there are multiple uncaused causes, I suppose that's a possibility.
Well, I would just say that we just don't know that there was an uncaused cause. The problem I have is I know where God's cause is. So God is contingent on us to exist. And so I don't know why God is an option if God is our creation.
Where I don't understand that at all. God is contingent on our existence?
He's our, well, he, as in the Christian God, the Jewish God, the Muslim God, yes, they're contingent on us to exist. They wouldn't exist without us.
I think that's a misunderstanding of what Catholics, I'm a Catholic, so that's all I care about. That's a misunderstanding of what Catholics believe. Catholics
Oh,
believe
absolutely.
Wait, no, you're the one misunderstanding there.
Why? I know you don't believe that, but I think that that's true nonetheless. I know what you believe. I'm just saying that irregardless of that, I would still assert that because God is our creation, he is contingent on us.
But I'm suggesting a framework where God is not contingent on us, where God is being itself.
When we start to make these type of adjectives into like ultimate, and like I don't know what being just by itself means. Like,
well, what I'm not proposing is an imaginary thing that we made up. So, like, saying that God is contingent on us, that's not that's a proposition of like something that maybe is true or maybe is false. It's not really applicable to what I'm suggesting.
I would say it is, because if it is an imaginary being, then it can't be the uncaused cause.
Like, if it is an imaginary being, well, I mean, yeah, but maybe it's just not an imagined being. And like, I'm not arguing that it's an imagined being. I'm arguing that it's not an imagined being, in fact.
And I'm arguing it's an imagined being.
Okay. So I'm just going to like go back to what I was saying earlier. Like, what if there's an uncaused cause and we can describe attributes of it? And like, this uncaused cause definitely isn't an imagined being, because an imagined being would have to be caused by like us imagining it and whatnot.
Sure.
So,
but
different things.
I would need evidence for that.
Well, the evidence that I'd suggest is that the universe doesn't really make sense without that. Or, yeah, I guess the universe wouldn't really make sense without that.
What do you mean? I think the universe makes perfect. As far as we can tell, there are some things that don't make sense, like when we're trying to tie the big and the small, like gravity and quantum mechanics. But generally, I think a lot of things make sense.
Well, except there'd be no explanation for for things to exist. Like, if things are circular, that doesn't describe why there's something rather than nothing. Like, if everything's if there's a circular causal chain, there may as well just not be that, and that's
But
great.
I would also assert, I don't believe that nothing can exist. And so why is there something that a nothing and nothing can't exist?
So it's not a conceivable universe, or it's not a conceivable reality where nothing exists.
Yeah, I don't think that a nothing can exist. In fact, we often get the atheists think that we come from nothing, and I find that universally atheists don't believe that. I mean, there's going to be someone out there. You don't have to be an atheist and believe this, but yeah, we see the theist worldview actually as pulling things from nothing. Because if we ask, where did God come from, or where does he make stuff from, it's nothing.
Well, I mean, I absolutely agree with you. I think that if there were a reality in which there was nothing, which doesn't really make any sense because there's a reality, but aside from that, if there were nothing, then we absolutely couldn't be here, because if you have nothing, the only thing that's going to change into is nothing. And so, yeah, I absolutely agree that like a universe where there's nothing is inconceivable and contradictory and not real. But if there's something, like there has to be like, let me see, a being. There has to be something. Let me see. There has to be being. There has to be
Can I ask
reality.
you
There has to
something?
be, yeah.
Is this why you are a Christian, a Catholic?
Let me see. I grew up Catholic, and so that's sort of why I started being Catholic. This is a good argument for why I'm continuing to at least like believe that there is a God. Yeah.
Can I ask you what would change your mind?
What would change my mind about there being a God? I don't know. Like, I suppose if you were to present an argument that you can have infinite causal change of discrete items, like, so I read a book that was, let me see, New Proofs for the Existence of God, which gave a whole lot of very good arguments. One of them was the uncaused cause argument. And a lot of the foundation for the arguments depended on the fact that like it's like mathematically impossible to have an infinite set of completed discrete items. Like that's just a sort of mathematical impossibility.
Could God do it?
I don't believe in a sort of a absolutist omnipotent framework for God. I believe that God sort of is to some extent. I'm trying to not commit a heresy, so I hope I don't. But God is like logic itself, and so for him to do something that's illogical, that would be a rejection of himself, which like doesn't really make any sense. So no, I don't believe in like absolutist.
In fairness, I'm trying to make you commit a heresy. No.
But to answer your question, like if it turned out that mathematically it was just fine to have like infinite causal chains, that would throw a lot of doubt on whether or not there's any real reason to think that a God is needed to describe the universe.
See, I'm not worried with an infinite causal chain. I'm okay if it's elephants all the way down, and I'm okay if there's an answer, but I am skeptical of first cause arguments. I'm skeptical because they seem like a way to use something that we don't know as a really strong premise for claiming that we do know something.
Well, I don't know. I'm not depending on anything that we don't know. Like, I mean, maybe it's a long philosophical and mathematical proof that infinite causal chains don't make sense. But that's not saying like we don't know something and so therefore God.
No, I'm not saying that, but I'll give you an example. All of the arguments, like if we were to just skip and go over to like a cosmological argument like Kalam, I mean, God's not going to be in there either. So where does God come in?
God comes in. Let me see. I'm not familiar off the top of my head with the Kalam argument.
Everything that begins to exist has a cause. The universe began to exist. Therefore, the universe has a cause. Trying to do it off memory. I feel like that's going to be on William Lane Craig's gravestone. It's going to say, "Here lays William Lane Craig, the Kalam cosmological argument."
Well, so let me see. I think that once we've sort of established that we need an uncaused cause, a prime mover, an unconditioned reality, all of that, then we can like start describing traits of it. We can define that it's immutable. We can define that there's only one. We can define that it's omnipresent, omnipotent, which we touched on earlier, has
I
a few
disagree
definitions.
with a few of these qualities. Why wouldn't it be able to change? Why would it have all of the omni qualities?
Let me see. So there'd have to be only one. I know I'm starting somewhere else than what you said, but I need to go through it in my head.
Why only one?
Because if there were multiple, then the two causal chains couldn't interact without having a medium between them to interact. In like not literally a medium, but there has to be something that allows them to interact. And if there's something that allows them to interact, that needs an explanation. And so either that's an uncaused cause or it has a cause, and we just have another causal chain that sort of encompasses the first two we were dealing with.
But this is why God is not an explanation. This is why when we ask, we say, well, what created God? And they just say, well, that's not a fair question. And we go, but it applies from the logic that came before. Why wouldn't that God? So I'll give you an example of my kalam. This is my kalam, okay? And it's a butchered version. Everything that exists has a cause. God exists, therefore God has a cause.
So, let me see. That requires either infinite causal chains or circular causal chains. You can't have an uncaused cause there, like by definition, right?
So there could be things that are uncaused.
But they don't exist.
Yeah, I would say that God does not exist, except for within our minds.
Wait, no. So you said that everything that exists has a cause.
Mm-hmm.
And then you said there could be things that don't have a cause.
No, I said everything that exists has a cause. God exists, therefore God has a cause.
Everything that exists has a cause.
Mm-hmm.
And then later you said that there could be things that don't have a cause.
Could be. Well, that's not within. So just this argument is everything that exists has a cause. God exists, therefore God has a cause. Do you agree with it?
I don't believe with the initial proposition.
That everything that exists has a cause.
Yeah, I don't think that's necessarily true.
So why couldn't it just be the universe? Just to go back to that.
Why couldn't the universe be the thing that doesn't have a cause?
Yeah.
At this point in the argument for God, I'm not gonna say what is or is not the uncaused cause. Like, I'm not gonna say it's definitely not the universe. I'm not gonna say it definitely is the universe. I'm just gonna say once we've like established that there has to be an uncaused cause, we can start describing it.
Okay. Can you give me some traits of the uncaused cause?
Yeah, I think there's I think that it's unique because if there were multiple, in the hypothetical scenario that there's multiple, and then they both exist, like in reality, they both have being, and so there needs to be something between them. There needs to be like a medium between them, even if they don't interact. Like there has to be a third uncaused cause that's actually like uncaused and unconditioned.
Can I show you why that doesn't need to be the case? It could be that in a multiverse there are two galaxies or super. Let me pick my names very specifically. Black holes. There are two black holes that run into each other, and when they collide into a supermassive black hole, they outpop this other universe in another dimension. Why couldn't it be like that, where it was the colliding of two things, of multiple things, that actually created something like our universe?
Well, in that case, our universe is not an uncaused cause, and so like, there's a different universe that needs an explanation, but our universe has an explanation in that example.
Well, yeah, we would be finding it out. I don't understand how that'd be different from what you're presenting.
Let me see. Well, I mean, so let me see. I think I can talk about this a little bit. There are lots of ideas for like the nature of the universe. The Big Bang is one. Okay, there was an explosion, or not an explosion, but a rapid expansion, and then the universe happened. One not very reasonable argument is that the Big Bang was the uncaused cause. Like maybe God just directly caused the Big Bang, and so God is an uncaused cause, and He caused the Big Bang, and then those are just like the first two links in the chain. But there is another idea where like the universe is cyclical. So Big Bang, rapid expansion, the expansion slows down, the whole universe collapses into one point, and then another Big Bang happens, and that just happens again and again and again and again. Our universe is like, if that's the situation that we're in, our universe might be like the nth iteration of that. But that doesn't refute the argument for like an uncaused cause. All it does is says that our iteration of the universe is not the uncaused cause.
Sure, I'm not saying there isn't an uncaused cause. I would say we don't know, and neither position supports a God. I very much push back because our gods, the ones on this earth, all have human remnants. We know how they formed. We know why they formed. They have the bearings of being a human-created mythology.
You're talking about religions there, not God.
Sure. Well, I would say very specifically, like any story that starts with Adam and Eve. So, for example, there was no talking snake, there was no serpent, there was no Satan. These are all magical evil people. We need to let them go. They don't exist. Jesus wasn't a perfect being. Perfect beings don't exist. The only people that try and sell us that are con artists. I'm not saying Jesus was a con artist. I'm saying whoever wrote that he was perfect was a con artist. Anyone who says they're perfect didn't resurrect after 3 days, 72 hours. He would have rotted. He didn't spend time in hell. He just died. These type of things are just mythology that was built up around him. It's not that he didn't exist. He was probably a first century rabbi. I would even say some of the things maybe he said were okay. But that doesn't mean he's a perfect being, a son of God. I don't even think Jesus thought he was the son of a God.
I mean, none of that has anything to do with the existence of all caps God.
Sure. I would also point out that the only evidence we have for a creator is animals. So animals are the only creators that we know of. There are no evidence of any non-animal creators. And so any law of nature would have an extremely high bar because it's just, generally speaking, gravity, evolution, they don't just naturally evolve out of minds.
I don't understand your position. Animals are the only creators. Who created animals?
Animals weren't created. They were formed. They formed by sex.
But that's not creation?
That's not creation. Creation is artificial. All creation is artificial.
I see it. You're defining creation as like being directed by an intelligent, like rational, willful mind.
Yes. So like we make houses, beavers make dams, birds make nests. We're the only organisms in life ever that we know of. Not saying, because if I make an only claim, then that means that I'm saying that there's no alien species out there that also doesn't do it or whatever.
Sure, yeah.
But yep.
Okay, so it doesn't take creation to make a mind capable of creation, though. right?
It takes a natural formation of sex.
Okay, that's weird, but I don't think it's entirely relevant because, like, okay, the universe then, like our planet, wasn't created. That's kind of unusual language, but I'll go with it. Like, none of that was created, but it still needs an explanation for why it's here.
Yes, it does. I would say that it formed naturally. So our solar system formed from supernova, really large stars that ended their lives. They spilled their guts out. They formed the heavier elements. From that, you get the formation of our solar system.
I mean, I'm just, I guess I don't really understand. I guess I don't understand the objection, and I'm sorry that I have to go back to this.
No, you're fine.
I don't understand your objections to, like, describing an uncaused cause.
Because
like, my question was going to be like, okay, who made this, or where did the stars come from, and where did this come from, and where did this come from, et cetera, et cetera.
Sure.
Oh, we've got a causal chain. Well, what's the beginning of that chain like? Or is it circular, or is it infinite?
I would say that it only goes back to a certain point, and past that point, we currently struggle to understand anything else. We basically know Planck time, the first milliseconds after the Big Bang happened, and we know the chain of events that would ultimately lead to us being here. But the problem is the big and the small fail at when we try to mix them. And so when we go back to the Big Bang, we're trying to understand something that is massive. It is the entire universe. And thus, it should be directed by general relativity. And yet, it is so small that it is a tiny dot. And so technically, it is following both the laws of general relativity, and it is technically obeying quantum mechanics, which means that it is using chance and statistics, and it's been complicated to combine those two.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a physicist. My aunt's actually a physicist, and she's incredibly smart and says stuff that I don't understand. So I can't really make physics arguments, but we could just divorce the causal chains from what we think they represent. Like, those two things are, we don't have to talk about physics in order to talk about causal chains.
I don't think we have to talk about complex physics to talk about, well, like, my problem is, like, I think that the theologians, the people who I think have the top level arguments, are doing these complicated arguments because they aren't able to get on a empirical basis. I think if they had empirical basis for a god, they would be marching it through cathedrals. And I think
do you think that God would require scientific evidence?
I think that it would be trivially easy, almost humorful, how easy it should be for an omni-god to give us empirical evidence. Like the stuff that he did 2,000 years ago, he could do today. And instead, we get reasons why he doesn't, and yet they never make sense to me in terms of an omni-god that should be able to do anything.
Right, but like, aside from the fact that God could manifest himself and perform miracles and whatnot, do you think that a distant God ought to have scientific evidence for his existence?
Well, when you say a distant god, do you mean a god that doesn't want to have a connection with us?
Yeah, basically, a God who doesn't interfere in our lives.
Sure,
Well, that's kind of not possible, but in as much as that is possible.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see why it wouldn't be, but I don't understand why the God wouldn't give evidence. However, if they don't want to have a connection with us, if they want to hide or not show themselves, then yes, I would say the model that they've put forth is actually highly successful.
But do you think that there ought to be scientific evidence for that kind of God?
For a God that wants to hide, I'd say it's the opposite. I would say it would look like this universe where we can't find any evidence for God. If a God wanted to hide, then it would look like a God that only has or a universe that only has a little bit of life. Like this universe could be teeming with life, but instead it only allows for life around stars within the circumstellar habitable zone.
Mm-hmm. I guess that's kind of interesting. So what I'm thinking is scientific evidence or science is not a mechanism for discovering supernatural things. Like whatever that is, whatever you think is or isn't there, science just isn't a tool for discovering that. Science is very specifically, we're studying the natural world. It's totally incompetent in anything above that, or even like older universes, like the cycling universe thing where Big Bang, Big Crunch, Big Bang, Big Crunch. Like science just doesn't have anything to say about previous universes or subsequent universes. So
isn't that weird? That like our most powerful human tool, the thing that gives us trains, planes, medicine, the best method that humans have come across for discerning truth, is one in which we can't find God.
I mean, it's a tool that has a particular purpose, and we have other tools for other purposes. So no, I don't think that's weird.
I not only find it weird, but I would say that the further back we go with the tools, the less useful they are. So I would say science is top level. I think if you go back in time, you find philosophy. I think if you go further back in time, you find theology. And I think you'd be hard to find anything useful that theology has given us in thousands of years.
Well, science and philosophy and theology aren't at all like contradictory things or mutually exclusive things. Like if science is a tool for studying our natural world, math can be a tool. Math certainly isn't science. It's not scientific at all. But it does like discover truth, and it is extremely useful. And philosophy, again, isn't scientific, but it is useful. A lot of people would disagree. But like it does discover truth, and theology also isn't really philosophy. It's not math. It's not science. I'd argue that it does also like discover truth, but that's sort of beside the argument. The point is we just have these different tools for discovering different aspects of reality.
So I'm also gonna say that we'll probably go, Cameron, for about 15 more minutes. That'll tap us out at 45 because I know Jib has been waiting back there. But it's been a good conversation. I want to push back I want to agree and then push back. I agree. They're not mutually exclusive. I think these are separated fields. However, I would say that the newer the tool, so far, the better the tool. So I think that philosophy has its use, but only in maybe a few different domain areas. Thought experiments, hypothesis making. I think it's extremely important in trying to, create your premises as you're trying to go out into the field and test your theory. And weirdly enough, I think it's good at countering apologetics. And outside of that, I think even philosophy has lost a little bit of its its kingness of discerning truth for what I would say is science, which is our strongest tool. And I would say theology at this point, it doesn't add anything useful. I would say that we would be better off if it would become something historical and it wasn't actively practiced.
I mean, chainsaws are more effective and more useful than hammers, arguably, or like just substitute chainsaw for some arbitrary tool. But that doesn't mean that nails don't exist, and that doesn't mean we don't still need to hammer down the nails.
I agree with you. I would say it's an ineffective tool. It's not only that there are multiple tools, because I would say we can't get rid of philosophy, like I said, for those three, just the beginnings of our thoughts, transmitting them into premises so we can go out into the real world and test them.
Mm-hmm.
But with theology, what do we lose? And I understand this is, borderline blasphemous, but, what do we lose when we give up theology?
Well, I don't really understand what like the purpose of life is outside of religion. Like I've thought about like what I would be if I wasn't religious. If like I was an atheist, I would just be a total nihilist. I suppose like my two main goals would be long-term sustainable hedonism and reproducing as much as possible. And
can I pause you for 1 second?
Yeah.
Okay. First of all, I'm not, and that may be true. I'm not 100% true, and I'll tell you why. Because I've heard that before from other Christians who say that's what they would be doing. They become nihilists. They just have, crazy stuff. What I would say, first of all, if that were true, I would say that's who you truly are. And you are basically just holding that back. It's that you and your body actually want to have what, in my opinion, could be a safe, good time. You have to make sure that you're being safe. But I would say that you rarely find day-to-day atheist nihilists. That is to say, sure, I'm not going to kid you and be like, there is this ultimate purpose and you're going to go somewhere when you die and all of that stuff that comes with religion. What I will say is you can find great purpose in life without religion. And I would even point to what I would say, it's not a conservative, I think conservatives talk about it more. And I was talking about it earlier, but I'll give you an example. My biggest thing in life is family. I think family motivates us to be better. I think that just having someone else to defend or support really, I know, makes my life shine. I feel the same. My job, very specifically, I help special education autism children. I get a lot of my time, unfortunately, gets sucked up, but I get a lot of great joy out of watching them grow as people. And I'm not going to say that everyone needs to go out and do that or go get married or whatever it is. But what I would say is that there are a lot of alternatives that I think would make multiple sides of the political spectrum fulfilled in life.
I mean, I agree that atheist nihilist maybe isn't very common. And I think the reason it's not very common is because, and I mean, everything that you love and do is great. I'm not trying to object or insult you, but I think it's kind of arbitrary what you're picking. And like family is a good example because it's like a very, very deeply ingrained biological drive to like care for your family. But it doesn't really matter. Like it's all just mass and energy and whatnot floating around without any real purpose. And so I think when there's an atheist who's not a nihilist, the reason he's not a nihilist is because he just like picked something to believe in arbitrarily and decides, okay, this matters, but it doesn't really matter. It's just like
but
him
can
picking stuff.
Okay, I'm going to pause to agree with you. I agree. It is arbitrary. It is a conscious, willing subjective decision. I think decisions are sometimes get a little bit fuzzy because we're oftentimes convinced, as in I convinced I would be, not to pull Jesus, but I'm convinced I was a good carpenter, so I'm going to go and learn how to do so. I'm convinced I'd be a good mother, and so I'm going to adopt, or I'm going to go out and find a partner to have kids. I agree that there isn't something like pulsating in the universe that's like go be a game designer. You're right, that does have to come from within, but what I would say is that also has the joy of being arbitrary, of it actually being up to you. And so, with these religions, sure, it has these very defined, specific sets of ways of living life. From the atheist perspective, they're all arbitrary. The religion is also arbitrary, but what someone has done is they have said, this is my system, this is the way that I'm going to live your life. So in my worldview, you're doing that no matter what. It's just the religious people have convinced themselves that it's not arbitrary.
So you are a nihilist then?
I would say, a nihilist in like a bigger universal sense, as in like, is there an actual commandment in the sky? No, you're right. On a universal level, I have to be a nihilist, but I don't think that means the same thing as what I would say is a day-to-day nihilist. A day-to-day nihilist who would define themselves saying that I live my life as a nihilist. I just want crazy sex, crazy this, crazy everything, because I think that's what Christians have in their mind. I think that you're going to find that most atheists don't live that way because it's not very cohesive to a good life.
I mean, yeah, the problems with it would be like, so what I said my goals would be, if I were a nihilist, is long-term and sustainable hedonism and reproducing as much as possible, not just having sex. And so, like, on a small scale, nihilism, like the sort of depressing, nothing matters idea of it, just isn't practical. And so, like, you can decide that things matter arbitrarily, but none of it still really matters. Like, if the whole universe doesn't matter, then a part of the universe also can't matter. And so, like, when I say nihilist, I don't mean you're depressed and you just do nothing or anything just because. What I just mean is your life lacks any greater purpose. And I think that's one thing that theology can do very well. Like, it can give society and people a external purpose that's like universal to everyone. Like, now, or if you switch from an atheist society to a religious society, now everyone in that society has a reason to maintain some personal morals. Like, before, maybe there are atheists who tried to be like, quote unquote, good people, but there are lots of other people who just don't see the point, and so just
can I
do
pause
whatever
you
they
for a
want.
second? It is, but it's taking on the arbitrary morals of other humans. It's going, a human wrote these down. I know you guys, I don't know if, I assume you don't believe this, but again, from our perspective, a bunch of humans wrote these morals down. These were their personal, subjective, arbitrary morals. And now other humans look at those and go, gee, it's a good thing that these are objective morals that came from a god. But they didn't. They're just subjective, arbitrary. When they talk about gays shouldn't, get together, that's because it came from just guys. And, why should you do your views on abortion? Well, views on abortion are very complicated in the Bible. But, and we only have a few more minutes.
Yeah.
But from my point of view, it doesn't escape the problem, because in both situations, Jub just left, and I was just about to get him on.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
Well, I still think we're gonna wrap up in 5 minutes. It's been a good conversation, though.
Yeah, I agree. So, I mean, the rules of the road are also arbitrary. The rules of language, maybe aren't arbitrary, but like Esperanto, that's for sure arbitrary. But having everyone follow the same rules, is beneficial for society still. Like, and so I'm not trying to. What I'm trying to argue is that there's a purpose for theology today still.
See, and I would say that it's important we have rules and laws, but I think that once we understand they come from humans, we could try, instead of just guesses, we want educated guesses. We want, the smartest among us probably being our lawyers and politicians. That doesn't always happen. But yeah, is there anything, Cameron? I feel I'm going to give you 30 seconds and I'm going to try and not interrupt you.
Yeah, closing statement. Thank you. I think that there's good reason to believe in a God. Like, the most important for me are like uncaused cause, prime mover, unconditioned reality. I think once you've decided that there is like an uncaused cause, you can define attributes about it, and then you can like build it up from there. You don't have to start. Okay, now I think the universe or physics or math is an uncaused cause. No, just start with an uncaused cause and build out from there. And I forget what the middle of our conversation was, but the end, theology does still have a purpose because it can sort of unite and work with everyone to build a better society for our children. And so, like, it's not true that science can just do everything. We still need theology and philosophy and math and whatnot. I think that's everything I want to say.
I got one last bonus question. I feel bad. Sending love to Randolph Richardson, who wants to know from you, what does your guest mean by atheist trying to be good? That seems to be packed with an incorrect and negative presumption that atheists are not good.
I mean, no, I didn't at all mean to suggest that atheists aren't good. What I was trying to say is there's no good or bad or evil from an atheist's perspective. Like, those things don't exist, and those are also arbitrary. So like, we can like arbitrarily say, okay, these behaviors are good and these behaviors are bad, and then like an atheist can do those things, like, and that's what I meant. And the reason like I caveat that with quote unquote is because those aren't necessarily good behaviors or bad behaviors, and like arbitrariness isn't how you should define good and evil. Like, good and evil just isn't a thing if you're a nihilist.
And all right, thank you so very much, Randolph, for the question. And Cameron, thank you for coming on and having a chat.
Yeah, thank you for having me. All right.
And all right, I am sending love to Randolph out there and everyone who I didn't get to say hi to. I see Darren, Bert, Adam, everybody out there. Keep on saying hi. I'll say hi. I think we're going to do one more call. He has been waiting. And so we are going to get him in. And then I think he's going to be the last call for the day. I do have some news from Taco. I think it's next week. It's the first of the week. And we just got the dates confused. And so sending love to Taco and everybody out there. Ix. And all right, let's get into it. I am bringing Jib.
Hello.
Jib, what is up? We are having Sun on the Theist Hotline. How are you? What do you believe in and why?
I'm well. Can you hear me?
I can.
Oh, excellent. I'm new to this app. Well, yeah, I found it interesting and thought I would hop on because I haven't done any atheist-related stuff in a while. I've had a few conversations with Darth Dawkins, like a pretty wild like YouTuber, and I'm a anti-theist as well as being a hard atheist. So I usually take the positive position that there isn't a God, along with anti-theism. which is, belief that religion is just outright harmful based off of what it usually teaches. So we usually, I think you and I share the same position on that to some degree.
Yep, I would say I've unfortunately talked with Gary as well.
Yeah.
And precepts are a bucket of fun.
Oh, aren't they? Aren't they a hoot? Recently, I've actually been in a few other call-in shows. I have, but I'll try to stick to this topic right now because otherwise I'll space out. I thought what the other guy had to say was a little bit interesting as far as his talk about nihilism and such. Because for me, because I am an anti-theist and a hard atheist, I don't think there's a God, and isn't that sort of like what nihilism's all about? Not believing that there's an objective set of rules. Because for me, when I interpret that, I think of being characters in like a book, and I'm not really a character in a book being dictated by an author or by a writer. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I am an anti-theist and an atheist too. I jokingly call myself a medium atheist, but
medium or medium rare.
Yeah, exactly. Because I think there are enough gods to disprove that, and they're most the gods we talk about. So yeah, I can't prove if there's some crazy other god that we don't know anything about. But all the gods they've been bringing up, I would say don't exist.
Yeah, and something I've been thinking about for a long while, as far as like religion goes, is I feel like it's something we as like humanity should have like outgrown like so long ago. Like, I think it's like neat as far as like looking back on religion and saying like what our ancestors like grew up believing before we had like scientific methods and before we had like good ways of like researching and studying what we needed before like making it worldwide. So it just baffles me sometimes. It makes it sort of hard to connect with like a bunch of people because it's like religious people are like everywhere, man. And just like from my perspective, they'll believe in something just so outlandish. But I have to sort of keep my mouth shut because otherwise it's like rude or inconsiderate.
Well, we unfortunately still live in a world of theists, especially in the United States. It is still majority theist. And I don't know. I go back and forth. I agree with you. We should have gone over it. And yet, the great irony is one of the examples that we are animals that do stupid things is religion. Again, I get that sometimes it's almost used as a hallmark, and yet it tends to be this misfiring. We are accrediting how amazing consciousness is, separating it from our body, and then worshiping it.
Yeah, no, I see what you're saying on that.
Also,
end.
Jib, I just want to interrupt you for one second. So you're not Jub, right? I just realized this.
Job?
There was someone before you. You're a different person. There was someone before the Catholic that was going to be anti-LGBTQ. I thought that's who you were, and I'm realizing now you're not that person.
No, I'm not that person. I have like we can talk about like LGBT stuff if you want though as well, because I have like some interesting perspectives on that topic as well. Because I was a TRA for like a really long time, for like maybe like 7 years, around like 2015 to 2022. But then I became gender critical recently. So it's been an interesting like change really, like listening and being a part of like the TRA and then swapping over to the gender criticals and listening to what they have to say. Real what do you call it? Almost like a culture shock really.
Gotcha. See, I'm trying to, I guess do you mean TRN as like a trans?
Trans rights activist.
Gotcha.
Although, like, it's really strange because back when I first became one, everyone called themselves like trans rights activists or whatever. But now I've been seeing online and in other discussions I've been in where people are saying, "Oh no, that's like a slur or that's offensive," and I'm like, "What are you talking about? Like, this is what I called myself." And I'm just like using this terminology to like describe like a worldview. So it's been odd, but the reason I decided to like change to being like gender critical was I didn't really see too many good like debates, I would say, from the TRA perspective. And when I would see a lot of like content from TRAs, a lot of what you see will be like the Lily Tino stuff, like, or Jammy Dodger, like these really like low hanging fruits. And it was like, man, it's like hard to like really side with these people when like this is supposed to like, be like my side. This is supposed to be like my group, and they're all sounding kind of like.
Well, maybe I can win you over. I would say I don't want to say begrudgingly. I have become a trans rights activist. Is that what? I support trans rights. I think it's the right thing is to have gender affirming care. What would be the other side to that? Would be like stereotypes type of thing.
Oh well, yeah. Like one of the issues I do take with like trans rights activism is, let me see, how do I phrase it?
That's right, I'm recruiting.
Yeah. Oh yeah, probably answering the people in the chat, I assume. But anyway,
Sorry, it's my ADHD.
No, it's I have it too actually. So, I think this conversation is going to be so on topic and so straightforward and narrow. There's not going to be any segue. There's not going to be any forgetting of what we're saying.
What are we talking about? No, exactly.
Oh, honestly, I do forget the last thing we said because I wanted to make that joke.
That's okay.
I'm so sorry.
No. We were talking about. See,
Oh, stereotypes. I remember.
I don't think I would have used to call myself a trans right. I feel like I have resisted that type of label because what I wanted to be was just a trans person who does other stuff. But in my opinion, the issue hasn't gone away. It has only increased. And so I guess I'm speaking out in defense more to combat some of the reactionary views out there.
So what would be your opinion then of like other TRAs and like say trans people that, and for lack of a better term, sort of like make the trans community look bad? I know that's like really rough language, but what I mean by that is like the trans YouTubers who might say take pictures of themselves in like women's restrooms, like again that little Latino person like is like the first person that pops in my head. Or when it comes to other like TRAs that are like really aggressive, like say like Jammy Dodger, for example, where it's like every like discerning opinion or any other curiosity on the subject automatically makes you like a bigot or like phobic in some way. That language really like turned me off from being a TRA because I was like, I like to debate and discuss things, and if like we can't do that without calling each other like names, then I don't really know if I can like agree with the side anymore. And that became like a big problem, is like no real courtesy.
Sure. So what I will say is that I do notice, especially in the debate sphere, is that they are political commentators. Political commentators tend to be spicier. And so it is almost like they're coming in swinging. I send love to all of my, like I said, I sometimes need that spiciness, I think, myself. But I also see some of the content that they put up with individuals who I guess the word would be triggered. And when people get upset, they're not their best. It is a bad representation. I understand why they're upset. So, you know, you could go to like a louder with Crowder table or something like that. And that's where you're going to see like a mom, you know, yelling about how much she loves her transgender kid. And, you know, I think that when you frame it like that, it is going to make the anti-trans person look calm and rational. And I think that we need to resist that pull, because that is kind of what they want, and still push for the rights of transgender, genderqueer, LGBTQ individuals. I don't want to language police. I don't want people getting fired, canceled, or all this stuff. But I do want people to be treated better. And so, you know, if it only takes giving a proper pronoun to someone, then I don't think it's that big of a deal. If, you know, if a transgender person, okay, I'm just making up the scenario, but came up to you and said, well, you better call me this and you better call me this, and they had an attitude, I guess I would be a little peeved, even as another transgender person. But I think in the real world, that's not what happens. I think it's generally transgender people aren't these political commentators. They aren't these people trying to stir up an emotion. They're just trying to live their lives. And so I guess I would break it from the sensationalism that you're going to find, sometimes we even want, in a political debate, and then just treating people better. I'll even add on a bonus. Like, I understand some of the points when you're talking gender critical. That's why I brought up stereotypes. I don't think that we should usher people into stereotypes. I don't think we should have boxes and force people in them. It's that I want to be as big tent as possible. So instead of, you know, discouraging masculine women or feminine men, we support that. We support if they want to be trans. We support everyone, if that makes sense, as long as you're a legal adult, blah, 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 blah. That was a lot, I know, but yeah.
Oh, no, I think I was able to follow. And yeah, that's why I brought up the gender critical aspect as well, because it's interesting. I joined basically a Discord run by like a gender critical leaning like trans person, and I've been like meeting a lot of trans people who are like gender critical lately, which I didn't like search for or anything, but like just by joining in like their chats and everything, and other people would hop in and sort of like pick my brain a bit too on like the leap from being TRA to gender critical. But yeah, going back to like the stereotypes, like one reason I take issue and I think myself that it is reliant on like a lot of stereotypes is from the gender critical perspective, or at least from like my take on it anyway. I think like a man can be like effeminate if he wants to, a woman can be masculine if she wants to, and like that's like completely fine. I just think it's a little problematic when they say they are that thing. And I make the, you know, comparison to like say race. Like I think that's like a common thing that happens. And I would say it's like this. Like I'm a nerd, right? I'm like a weeaboo. I like my anime, you know, my Japanese stuff. Like I could like say go to Japan as an example, you know, enjoy the culture if I wanted to, you know, wear like their attire and stuff. But I wouldn't then say like I'm Japanese, because then I feel like at that point we would say, oh, this person's being like racist. So I think in the same aspect when it comes to like people like claiming to be like the opposite gender, I think it's fine to say like, oh, that person's like a cross-dresser, or that person is just acting how they want to act. But it almost comes off as, I don't know, sexist, like using the same type of logic. You know what I mean? Like you can enjoy something without being that thing.
Sure. Well, yes, but I want to. So I do believe, first of all, that there are going to be just feminine men and masculine women. I do think that we are talking about something social. I think it is a social phenomena like race, but it's not race. And so the analogy breaks down because, first of all, race was based off of pseudoscience anyway. We should really be trying to, I believe, phase that type of social situation out. I think it'll be phased out by sex, but as we just continue to intermingle. But I think gender really is just a spectrum of feminine and masculinity, how feminine and how masculine you are. And I think that right now in Western society, we just have two buckets. And it's, are you very feminine or are you very masculine? And a trans man says, I'm very masculine. That's the bucket I want. And a trans woman says, I am very feminine. That's the bucket I want. And I think it would be better just to be inclusive of all of them instead of forcing anyone into any of the buckets, if that makes sense. Because we can still have feminine men and masculine men and trans women and biological women who like their sex or their gender, and biological men who like their gender. And
right. And that's I
mean, I would even say you could be gender critical and transgender. Like you were saying, I have this thing which is two-word political correctness. That is to say, political correctness always hides in 2 words, because you can make these 2-word meanings mean almost anything. Like I could view myself as gender critical because I would say, I don't think we should force people to apply those stereotypes. But I would say coincidentally, transgender people just like and align themselves with, they tend to like things that those sexes tend to like.
right. Let's see. Trying to see what to say to that.
I mean, there's a reason why I don't think that we should. I mean, Rachel Dolezal, those type of people, to offer you an olive branch, you know, I do think that, you know, it does show the silliness of race. Not a big fan. I think that we have done, you know, numerous bad things because of race. And I don't think that it offers many positives. I like that everyone can celebrate their ethnicity and things like that, but people like Rachel are going the opposite direction. To get as spicy as I can. See, I always get weird things because when I tell people my family was Jewish, I am white depending on the person I'm talking to. Like, the more conservative they are, the more of a minority I become.
I get mistaken for being Jewish all the time too, because I got a big nose.
Yeah, I definitely got that bump, that Nordic bump.
Yeah, so I'm either Jewish or my friend thinks I might be Polish, I guess, but my dad and my mom aren't either, so I have no idea. But I guess I'll follow up with another question. I guess what's your like viewpoints on like gender criticals, and like what do you like know of it?
Sure. So, I mean, I would say gender critical ideology, not to use a slur, but it's stemming, I would say, from trans exclusive radical feminism. Most of the modern day, at least ones, maybe not gender critical in itself, but saying that these notions of social, stereotypes like a girl wears a dress. Well, now you're really just saying that girls have to like dresses. And now you're just really having this warped view that they would say almost sounds very similar to the traditional gender norm, the trad wife, all of these I would view as horrible stereotypes coming from the right. I disagree. I'll tell you why. I don't think that trans people are trying to say this is what women should be. I think what they're saying is, and I guess I love how I talk third person. This is how I try and separate myself so far from politics. What I'm trying to say is that we already like makeup. We already like dresses. We already like all of these things. And so it just makes it hard to survive in Western society when there's only two buckets. And I wish we could live in the society that I would say the gender critical thesis is pushing forward. That is basically just saying, come as you are. Why do you need to call yourself a woman? Can't you just be feminine and just come and be you? I would say that the people that this is coming from are in direct opposition with their allies. And I would say their closest allies are the religious right, who are actually pushing the stereotype. I would say if I could win you over to anything, be I'm trying to remember all the acronyms, be a TRA gender critical theorist. Like, be both. I don't want people to be stereotypes. I don't want to be, just because I'm a trans woman, I don't want to go up to now biological woman and be like, why are you wearing pants? Don't women wear dresses? Like, I don't want to become what we hate. But then at the same point, I want to like dresses because that's just what I like. Does that make sense?
I see where you're coming from on that end. But like I agree with like what was said earlier as far as the interpretation of gender criticals seeing, because this is actually something that I said before, is like, from my perspective, it seems like an old stereotype that was originally very like right wing, as far as like, men, say like enjoy boxing, women say enjoy cheerleading, right? And then like back then, like you could like, a man had to like be very masculine, had to be these very certain things, and to be like a woman, you had to like do and be these very certain things. And it feels like, over the years, we kind of like got past that to where it was like, you can be very feminine or very masculine, and that none of that really mattered anymore. But when I've been listening to some like what do you call it, like trans stories where people will tell them like their audience or whatever, like what caused them to transition, a lot of what I tend to hear is, oh, I had like a very like masculine father, very like rough family, and I enjoyed playing like with like dolls, or I enjoyed like these more girly things. And then from that point of from that thought process, they'll assume that must make me like a man, or that must make me like a woman, because these are like women things. My dad says I should not like these things.
Can I pause you for 1 second?
Yeah.
Because I would say it's like trying to make it a one or another, and I don't think it has to be. Like if your message is there are masculine women and feminine men, and we should be not trying to push them into the bucket of transgender, I'm with you, because I believe that it's a spectrum. I think that, we can have trans women and femboys, and I think they can both exist instead of having to make it kind of one versus the other. Just like I think it exists with masculine men and feminine women, or biological.
I mean, yeah, I do see like a coexistence, and the interesting thing I've noticed is when I've met the more gender critical leaning, or even just gender critical in general, like trans people I've been running into, like trans women, like I've been like poking their brain a bit too, like as to like why they like take the position, and from what they said, something that bothered them is, which is a topic we already went over, which was like, how do I say it? Like the loud minority. You could basically say like the loud and annoying minority on like, say, the left, which is where I'm at anyway as well, which is what makes it interesting being gender critical, because you don't really see that. Most gender critical, like probably right leaning slightly or somewhere in the center. But either way, oh yeah, it seemed like some of the more like trend YouTubers were like an issue based off of like how they behave, and I'm thinking to myself like yeah, it also makes it like tricky, because I'll think about like the self ID argument a little bit, because when it comes to like people like that to like cause like the drama on YouTube and everything, like it almost seems like a lot of them might be doing it just because they can like already claim a victimhood and still push for being like on the right side of things. You know what I mean?
Well, I will say sometimes I used to get, at least 10 years ago, I was told that like I won the identity politics lottery, which is I'll tell you why that's weird. It's weird to me because it's been like a roller coaster. There has been certain times where we were the joke of, every conversation. Like we were just Jerry Springer. Then we had a moment where like people would tell me what I just said earlier, which is like, oh, you must be the head of the pack because you're trans. And that was very weird to adjust to too, because just a second ago we were a joke. Now we are kind of, the pendulum keeps on, unfortunately, swinging back and forth. I don't think with this administration we're currently in, it is politically amazing. It doesn't feel like I won the lottery. I'll tell you that much. I like who I am. I think that it took me many years to be able to get pronouns wrong and have no reaction from it, because it does suck. I will admit, when you're used to an environment, especially with just family, friends, loved ones, and they are treating you with respect, it does suck to have someone basically emotionally cut you off at the feet. I will say, unfortunately, that having a negative reaction has never been positive. And that's what I have learned, is that in trying to lecture people, maybe that's not even, maybe they would say trying to educate my liberal brothers and sisters, it never works. And so what I have found is only the sympathetic, empathetic route. That is to say, if they need to pronoun you wrong, you let them pronoun you, or you give them the chance to change. You say, I'm sorry, but my pronoun was blah, 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 blah. But if not, it's almost a losing battle, because it's one of those things where, is it just social? Are they arguing biology? Sometimes I'll give you an example. I don't think that transgenders, and I'm not saying you were saying that either, but sometimes we get the thing, we're denying science. We're denying, thank you, Gerudo. But I think we're really just saying something very specific. The separation of sex and gender, which may be something to talk about. And from that separation, someone's gender doesn't always match up with their sex. That's what I guess what we're trying to push forward, that gender is really just social conventions of masculine and feminine. Again, I just said a lot, but
No, it's all right. It's all good.
And I will say also, we have about 15 more minutes. And then after 15 minutes, I'm probably going to have to wrap up. But it's been a good conversation. And we still got time, just saying.
Oh, yeah, no worries. Yeah, and yeah, it's been a good call. I try to keep my conversations cordial. I was going to ask you what your opinion on the term and the label, like the queer umbrella, is. Because I personally really don't like the terminology for it. Because I'm a little older. I'm like 31, and like when I was young, like you didn't really call someone like queer unless you were trying to be like fancy for calling them like the F word. So like, you know, on top of, and sorry, I just want to say just a tiny bit more. I'll try not to make it like too long, because even if you want to say, like, language changes, it has like alternative meanings, which I understand all that, but like, even if we look at like, what they would use queer before, like it being like a slang term for like a gay person, like, it just meant strange. So even when I think like, if we're using like that terminology, it still sounds self-deprecating. I don't know, in both ways of the definition. When I think about it, I'm like, oh, this isn't really, it doesn't really look good.
Sure.
What do you think?
I'll tell you where that comes from. I'm sympathetic. I understand, even with the pack of cigarettes word, people are going to take that a bunch of different ways, especially with queer. What I would say is that just like the pack of cigarettes word, it's a rebranding. What happens is that word gets slung at a group of population so long that I think what they do to unweaponize it is they wear it proudly. And you're not going to find everyone wants to do this. There's going to be people who are going to find that word offensive. And I don't blame them. Like I don't have any feelings either way on it. But what I would say is that's where I think some people find comfortableness in it, is they say after being called it so long, they go, you know what? I am that. You know what? It means a little bit odd, a little bit weird, a little bit not fitting in type of thing. And so, again, I'm sympathetic where it came from, a curse word. I think there's a variety of curse words that get rebranded in a kind light when the community uses it. Oh, yep.
Hold on.
Mm-hmm.
No, yeah, go on.
And so I don't blame you for not wanting to wear that label. I would say the reason why it's being used is because of its history of being such a negative word.
I see what you're saying, like, because it was like used so often to like describe them. That's why they use it now as like, how do I phrase it, almost like not, I don't know if the term trophy works, but something.
Sure, taking control of it.
Yeah. That's the word. It's, I can see where they were coming with that, but at the same time, man, that's just so tricky because it makes it such like a turn off. Like when I think about it myself, I mean, I'm not a part of it myself, but still, I think outside of like us on the left having more. Okay, I know how to describe it. I think we on the left tend to attract more weirdos, to be perfectly honest. But I think the language we use on top of, like, I think most of us having some sort of problem, being like on the spectrum or otherwise, myself included, I think like the labeling makes it even harder for like, I would say like normies to really want to vibe or like agree with us. So it makes it like hard for there to be like a decent intersection between centrist and the right and like the left. And it's like irritating because it would be nice if everyone could just work something out. But with all the differences socially and like behaviorally, it's like, damn, I don't know how that's going to end up ever happening.
Well, the liberals definitely can be cats. I think atheists definitely have that issue too, is that, when everyone's a free thinker, that means that you kind of have people wandering around. I think that there's always going to be, to use myself as an example, my lip and nose piercings and my hair gets bluer the longer that I talk. But I still think that we have space for, conservative members to be part of the LGBTQ, to be part of, the Trans Alliance. You're always going to have, I think, when I open the show, I always say the same thing: welcome, misfits. And so, we may just have that propensity to be reaching out to people that, I like the people that are. I'm trying to think of phrasing this. I like my misfits. And so I'm sending love out there. I do try and defend what I would think these values that I think conservatives will really base themselves off of, which are things like family and not maybe some of the other things that we talk about so much right now, like immigration and stuff. I don't know. I am a moderate. I'm a centrist. I really do want to win over the hearts and minds of conservatives. I do want everyone to really be at peace. I'm very thankful for the West. I know that that's a weird statement sometimes coming from my blue-haired self. We were given a lot of opportunities. I'm very thankful for, being able to get married. I think that eventually this thing, trans in the military, will have won and stuff like that. I just think we need to get over some of these issues. We'll figure out sports. We'll figure out the locker room. We'll figure out the bathroom. And then hopefully when we come out the other side, sending so much love, davegar. Let me tell you, the longer that I am in politics, the lefter I'm becoming, though I think that's a reaction to American politics. But who knows? Yes, I do want to win hearts and minds over at the conservative side. I don't want us, freaking out over everything. Ironically, I honestly think that we as liberals, as people that are pulling from the academic and medical backgrounds, have the more rational, empathetic, medical-based solution. We just need to calm down and really figure out how to best communicate that message to people on the internet. Because, sometimes we're not always the best ambassadors. So I think we can definitely work on that, because I think that we have a good cause. I think that the trans exclusive, I think the TERFs will eventually be back on our side one day, because it's hard to argue with religion. If I could just appeal to your atheist side, that religion, let me tell you.
Oh yeah, not a fan of religion. I think religion's like fine again. Like if you're looking at it as, again, almost like history based off of like what our ancestors used to believe in, but again, for the modern day, it just seems so absurd. It was tricky because I'm used to like typing and discussing my like anti-theism and such, but I'm not too used to like talking about it out loud. I'm like, man, I sound like pretty harsh, I think.
Trust me, I feel the same way sometimes, because we are, in essence, telling them some of their, heartfelt beliefs are wrong.
It's funny because no matter what I say, I'm going to say something offensive. I mean, whether I'm discussing like religion, I'm going to offend somebody, or if I'm discussing the trans topic, I'm going to offend somebody else. And it's just funny. It's like, oh man, and I can't seem to keep my mouth shut.
Well, they say no politics or religion. Our joke used to be that we don't talk politics on the server. It's, we just talk the simple subjects like religion. But
No, simple subjects, yeah,
grown.
simple subjects like religion.
But I will say, Jim, it has been a fun conversation. I'm gonna hand 30 seconds over to you, unless you have anything else to go back and forth or ask me. But if not, I'm just gonna let you have a final say.
Yeah, we can just do a final say. Yeah, it was good calling in, good being in a chat with you. I don't know if you recall or not, but like some years ago, James from Modern Day Debate, I think he's like the host. He usually has like Beal Beard.
Mm-hmm.
He actually invited me on, and I remember I think I hit you up way back. So at some point we should do like a 2v2 like atheist debate. I just couldn't find anyone. Yeah, I couldn't find anyone to like join in or be interested. But I was like, oh man. But yeah, I was like, it was interesting because I hadn't seen any of your content for a while, and I recently saw your like live video. I was like, oh, that's rare. And then something I thought was interesting is the gender critical YouTuber I'm following who like they usually review a bunch of like trans stuff. They actually did a video watching one of your debates recently, and I was like, "Oh, hey, it's Amy. I haven't heard of that person in like ages." So it's like, "Oh, how interesting! What an interesting dynamic."
Yeah, it's been hard because of I've been teaching, but I am getting better systems so that I'm hoping that it's much easier to grade, and then I have more time, and then I do more podcasting. That's at least the hope.
Sorry, what was that last thing I was typing to somebody?
Oh, you're good. Also, what's up, Pat? Sending so much love. No, just hopefully I am better at handling my time and getting systems in place because I want to podcast all year long. I'm not going to let what happened in this past fall, winter happen. Loved teaching. It was great classes, but I want a podcast. I missed
Oh, nice. Good to see that you're going to be making more content. I might call in sometime in the future with more topics and discussions relating to like religion or the trans stuff.
Yeah, I'm all up for it.
Right.
Apparently, the politics has that gate has fallen, so I'm all for it. But Jim, it was wonderful having you. Keep on coming on, and I'll see you next time.
Alrighty, peace.
And all right, I think I am gonna wrap up the show, unless I have a fundamentalist Christian, Muslim, or Jew, or a Hindu join the chat in the next few seconds. I think we're going to roll out. It was actually a good conversation or two. I liked both of them. I know it definitely has, Pat. I'm not going to let that happen anymore. I am done. I am excited to make more content. I want to really revamp everything. It's a long time coming. I finally have time. We apparently, Taco, things were going so crazy in Taco's week that he thought this week was next week. And so we will be having the Theist Helpline next week. But I still think I'm going to be podcasting tonight. So I need to get off and have lunch and do whatever so James and I can come back tonight. I am going to send you love. I see all that love coming out. I'm going to show it up on the screen in a second. Let me see if anyone else is live so I can send you to them. T-Jump has a premiere going on. Ooh, Skeptic Generation is live. I'll send you over to Skeptic Generation. I love my brother T-Jump, but he's doing a premiere, and this is live. Though you should check out his premiere, too. He does great content. All right, y'all. I hope that you had a fun time on this Theist Helpline. where we ask the question, what theists believe in and why. Hopefully next week I will have a logo, or next month or whatever. I should get it ready by next week, shouldn't I? Well, this month it's getting worked on. I'm getting a logo. I'm getting sound. We're getting all sorts of new fun things as we revamp the channel. I do want to thank everyone for joining us out there on the inner tubes for this Theist Helpline, as well as all of you out there. I want to thank my co-host James W., along with all the people on our panel, my two guests tonight, as well as the people in chat, our awesome mods who make this stream so great, and lovely viewers like you who make this channel even possible. If you enjoy the show, please don't forget to like, follow, or subscribe. I said it, YouTube. I said it. Let them go now. And then hit that bell icon to all so you can join our live stream. Or hey, why not leave a comment once the video is done? After the show, you can head over to the Skeptic and Ranting Discord server. Also needs to be revamped. Summer cleaning. The link of which is in the description below. English. It's a fantastic. Technically, we speak American here. It's like a butchered version of English, along with our fantastic channel members. And you can unlock with our evolving badge system. Please trigger Kent Hoven, who has been taught evolution, and I really do mean taught, by the best in the world and still doesn't believe it. Who knows if he believes it? His money revenue has to come from it. Denying it. But yes, as well as some unique perks by checking out patreon.com/Amy Newman. I am Amy Newman, along with James W. We are the Skeptic and Ranting community. I'm so sorry, Goth. I'm sending you love. Mwah. I'm sending Randolph, Bert, everybody. $2. Sending so much love to Davegar. I'm dancing right now. You can't see it, but I'm dancing. I'm dancing. I'm dancing. I will, Randolph, sending love. All right, y'all. I will see you all on the next episode of Skeptic Ball Z. Sending love to everybody that tagged. I'm sending love, sending love. See ya, hearts, boosh. I think that's everyone. And good night.